corridors. A little bit cold this morning. Had an ice bath, 3 minutes in the ice bath, and it's raining and it's grey, and it just felt worse, I think, because it's grey and raining. Now I can't warm up. Anyway, welcome. Today's episode, today's discussion is about rethinking the role of the BDR in 2024. I don't know about you, but we certainly saw a shift in the feeling towards the role, what was happening to many sales people, not just BDRs, redundancies left, right, and centre. In fact, I've spoken to 3 BDR leaders in the last week, 2 of which have been made redundant. And so, without further ado, Jordan, Jensen, do you want to say a few words, introduce yourself, and then we'll kick the discussion off?
Age before beauty.
Go on. You go first.
Good morning. I am Jordan Abbott, aka the Sales Poet. I'm currently a business development manager by title at the ISP, but the role's more of a hybrid sort of full cycle sales role.
Hail, Jensen Abbott. I was going to joke around and say also known as Gem and M after my latest rap video. Jensen Abbott, BDR at content.ai, and it's a pleasure to be here today.
And what a good rap video it was. Anybody that wants to have a look, can't speak this morning. Wait a minute, it's because I'm so cold. I've got
The office.
Look at my fingers. I can't, feeling in them. If anyone wants to check out Jensen's rap video, go to his LinkedIn profile.
It's not a very good advert for the ice baths.
Honestly, it is good. Right, where do we start this conversation? Should we start with the numbers that you see on the screen?
Yeah, let's.
Yeah. So for those listening and not watching, the numbers on the screen, or the first number on the screen, is 0.1%. Any idea what that number is?
MQL to closed won conversion.
It is. So according to our friend Chris Walker, the MQL conversion rate, the industry average MQL conversion rate, is 0.1%. So basically what that means is that a company needs to generate 1,000 MQLs in order to close one piece of business. And I don't know about you, but that seems like quite a lot.
To be fair, I mean, I think 0.1% is quite generous.
Quite possibly. Yeah, quite possibly, especially when you think about the number of emails companies have to send now in order to just book a meeting, not close a deal.
Yeah, I think, it's an ongoing debate. What is an MQL? How do you define it? I think it's gotten looser and looser as companies and marketing departments have inflated targets. So things that previously wouldn't have qualified as an MQL are being thrown in that bucket. But yeah, is there a definitive definition?
Yeah. Well, some might say it changes depending on what sales or marketing needs to prove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on. But when you think about this, I mean, it's a problem. No matter which way you slice it, it's a problem. I think about the money that is invested in marketing teams, sales teams, BDR teams, the investment in sales tech to generate MQLs, to generate interest within a specific territory. And if the conversion rate is 0.1%, I just don't know how companies can make money. I don't know how sales and marketing functions can be deemed profitable. And this might be why we saw last year this shift to an all, BDRs and this all-round sales role, this hybrid approach where, a BDR that has traditionally spent all of their time prospecting is now doing a combination of prospecting and selling. Yeah. Anyway, go on, Jordan. I can see you were poised.
No.
What?
Sorry, go on, Jens.
When we were talking, then I was just thinking of a quote that was going round in my head, and you were talking about marketing budget and how can it be profitable and spending a lot of money, and obviously the big problem of that, right, could be pipeline, not enough pipeline. So we've got to then, you could be at an event and it's like, right, let's scan as many people, let's try and get the MQLs up. And that could be because it's kind of a bit of pressures have been applied, a bit panicky, right? Let's try and actually make something out of nothing, right? But then it makes me think of a quote, and it's, you can never see your reflection in boiling water. When the water calms, clarity comes. And I then sit and think, actually, if you could like take the step back, think of about like a strategy, right? Going back to kind of personal brand and actually, how can you actually position yourself to have conversations with the right people? But no, sorry, it was just something that was going on in my head, and I was thinking about the quote, and I thought actually it kind of links to business and marketing teams as well, right? Kind of when there's a lot of flapping around trying to get MQLs.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, George, did you have a point?
No, it's really valid. I think it's this idea of the snowball effect. It feels like we're at the tail end of that snowball. Businesses have had to try and achieve, inflated targets, and it's just sort of grown. And when, the qualification criteria for any team within that GTM org has been, increased, they've maybe loosened the criteria. Sorry. So when the targets have been increased, the criteria has been loosened. And then the higher ups have seen, okay, well, they achieved that target, so we're going to increase it again and increase it again and increase it again. And we're now at this point where the metrics just don't make any sense. It's just not sustainable. So we've perhaps cut our nose off to spite our own face.
Yeah.
I think about so what you're saying there, Jordan. I think about that pressure that starts off as positive pressure, and let's rally the troops. Let's get behind it. We've seen some success. Let's do more of that, until it reaches that point where it just isn't working, or the performance is petering off and even declining. And we all know that the pipeline and revenue is based on relationships, and it's based on a level of trust that one creates with their target audience. No deals are done unless your buyer knows you, likes you, and trusts you. And so at what point do we switch? At what point do organizations actually make that switch from, cracking the whip to be insight led, to go generate meetings that we already see are not converting at the rate that they need to one that is actually, well, let's focus on building meaningful relationships and empower our salespeople, our BDRs, to develop those relationships and build trust with buyers, so that we increase the likelihood of that meeting, that conversation, that relationship turning into a positive commercial outcome for the buyer and the seller, for the customer and the supplier.
It's a really good point, and obviously something that feels oversimplified. Morning, Neil.
Morning, Neil.
I struggle to see a way in which that change will have any meaningful impact without how teams are compensated being changed. Because if teams are still compensated on the same things, then you're never, as a salesperson or as a sales development rep or a BDR, who, let's face it, we are all driven by achieving that goal, whether it be, you know, for financial gain or just for that sort of fulfillment, right? If we are compensated and targeted on 30 new conversations, 30, whatever it may be, we're going to do whatever we can to achieve that target. So unless the business changes the way it compensates their people more in line with that biocentricity, I don't think we're really going to make any meaningful inroads there.
Yeah, I agree. And Catherine Olivier, who you spoke to recently on one of your podcasts, who I spoke to yesterday, she was talking about that exact point around how we measure performance, how we measure BDRs. And
sorry,
I'm really got swiped in the face there.
Stop the cat tail from coming across. Apologies.
Hey, if we can't bump up our numbers, maybe your cats can. Yeah. Bring her in, gents.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting one. You know, measurement, I think, is a key. How we measure our BDRs is a key driver of behaviour. And if we're measuring the wrong things, then we're going to be driving the wrong behaviours, and that's going to have an impact. And so, you know, I've personally feel really strongly about the fact that we should be measuring BDR performance on things like relationship strength, perceived level of trust and credibility within a target audience.
On that note as well, right? I think doing that, it creates, well, first of all, it makes the BDR's life more enjoyable, right? Because you're actually getting conversations and having conversations, not just, and I don't just mean having commercial conversations, you're also finding out the pain points of the individual, right? If you're asking the right questions. So kind of going back to the directional questioning session we used a couple of weeks ago, right? It's more enjoyable for the BDR because they're able to have conversations. I think it's more enjoyable for the buyer as well, because they're not being pitch slapped, right? Here, there, and everywhere. And actually, you end up finding you learn, or for my case, you learn more about the industry. You learn kind of more about the hurdles, pain points that they're facing, and maybe companies similar to them, right? So then actually it kind of gives you that nice you're having that nice conversation, which you can then use the directional questioning to take that conversation down a specific route.
Yeah. I'm just going to put Neil's comment back up. It's in line with what we were just talking about. Conversion seems to be far more commercially driven now rather than relationship trust based. And, you know, I want to pose a question, you know, and let's have a territory in mind. Let's say there's a territory in mind. If BDRs had a level of trust between them and their target audience, how many more meetings do you think they would generate?
6.7x.
Where did you get that number from?
Well, that was my increase.
Okay.
After doing the social selling training, within a 6-month period, I went from 1.3% of people that I asked for calls actually accepting and showing up to 9%.
Okay. So you've got the data to back it up. I just thought you plucked a figure out of the air then. Yeah. Okay. There we go. There we have it. 6.7 times more the number of meetings by focusing your time on developing your personal brand and appearing like you are the person you are, a genuine, authentic individual that is also an expert at what you do because you write about it and post about it.
Yeah, indeed.
So you do that because you've felt the success from it. You do that because you know it works. There are many sales reps, there are many BDRs in your position that haven't yet felt that, are being forced still to work in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
What advice can you give them where they're trying to make that transition? They perhaps don't quite yet believe that it works.
Yeah, so I was in the same position. I don't think it was really until maybe 8 months after we did the initial training that something actually clicked. And what it was that actually clicked was I was just so over doing things the old way and things not working and feeling that constant pressure and feeling like I was chasing my tail and feeling like I had to send more emails and make more calls. And it was just sort of really demoralizing when I still wasn't really able to move the needle, regardless of how many more calls I made or how many more emails I sent or how much later I worked. And it was then at that point that I went, okay, I just need to throw myself into this new way. And of course, when I then started seeing results, it affirmed my belief in it and made it easier to sort of justify my actions. And then the other thing was just reporting religiously. So defining what those key milestones are and measuring it and going over it with a fine-tooth comb to identify actually what benefits it's having. But then additionally, then you're able to see, okay, well, this week I got this many engagements and I got this many calls and I made this many comments. So how is that impacting the number of calls? And you can start to identify those different levers that you can pull that's going to, or for the inputs, that's going to have a positive effect on the outputs.
Yeah. So for many companies, 8 or 9 months is they don't have 8 or 9 months to give their people time to have that realization that you had, Jordan.
Yeah.
So what advice can you give to people? What advice can you give to companies to help them understand, or actually different question, what could you have done to shorten that timeline from 8 or 9 months to 1 or 2 months?
Yeah, so just to clarify, that 8 or 9 months, that was as a result of me not necessarily believing in it. It took me 8 or 9 months of pain to then go, okay, I need to change something, right? And I think businesses have just gone through 12 months of pain throughout 2023, the majority of businesses. I think you'd struggle to find a business that achieved or exceeded the targets that they'd laid out. So they've already felt that pain. In terms of the change, it can be done fairly quickly, but it's down to the individual. The individual has to believe in it. And, the personal change piece would come in here really well, identifying, okay, how are they feeling because of this change? Are they surprised by the change? What are the options? Is it we continue doing what we're doing and continue feeling the way we're feeling, or do we change something? And just actually really sitting in that and identifying, okay, what are the options, and having the support internally as well. That's going to be key for any organization that's wanting to make the change. And there's
I was just also going to add a quote there, actually, George, that links to what you were saying. And you were saying that you didn't believe for the 8 months, and it leads me to a quote in saying, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. Right, and that's doubting yourself. Obviously, you're actually putting yourself further away from the goal, where if you throw yourself at it, fail, you actually don't fail. It's a character building day. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of you dust your armor off, you get back up, and you go at it again.
Yeah.
There's
Cool.
yeah.
I'm going to get to a couple of Neil's points here. Were you? So
Yeah.
have a view on this. I certainly do.
I do as well, but I also think that there needs to be a definition of personalization, because
So the question is, just for those listening and not watching, do we think the personalized approach is more effective than scattergunning?
I was going to say, what are you counting as personalized? Because then you start going into the territory of kind of over personalized, right?
So yeah, and I was delivering some training yesterday, some social selling training yesterday, and I spent 10 minutes talking to someone about the fact that and I'm not naming any names, but they wouldn't send a connection request to someone they didn't know unless they spent time doing the research. And the normal approach is to do extensive research and then send an email. And they're not getting the results that they need to. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
So I think there is this balance between pseudo personalized that can be high volume, copy paste, especially if you've got a buyer-centric profile and you're creating content regularly that's relevant to your target audience. They'll feel like you're personalized to them anyway. And then combine that with the the research based, okay, this is a primary stakeholder, I'm going to put a bit more effort in.
Yeah, I completely agree. And to Neil's next comment, make yourself relevant to the buyer and their current issues. I think that's what's key. And the reason I say that is because we've sort of created a monster out of personalization, so much so that when buyers see that you've put that effort in to personalize, it's a red flag. It's okay, zone of resistance is up, this person's going to try and sell to me.
Yeah.
So I think the key is make yourself relevant to the buyer and their issues. Make yourself personable, make yourself approachable, right? And be curious as to the issues that the prospect is facing, and just start a conversation, in not a sales conversation. Just start a conversation, and then you can go from there.
That's the key. Just start a conversation. Don't sell. And to your previous point, Meg, I think quite rightly says the scared so what plan comes to mind. So scared so what is a personal change methodology, one that we've had the benefit of being trained on. And it's the world's first change model that puts the individual at the center of organizational change and allows them to critically reflect. I'm not pitching it, I'm just saying it. If anybody is doing any sort of organizational change that requires people to change, they should check that out. And if you've got questions, please ping us. Anyway, with that, we've run over again. So that's 2 weeks in a row. So
yeah, we haven't covered off the 5% or the 70%. So do we want to just, because I'm curious as to they are, just before we do sign off.
We've touched those numbers indirectly. So the 5% is where most BDRs focus their time, searching and qualifying the 5% of people that might be in market for the solution that they are selling. Problem is, everybody else is doing the same. And unless you know that person, like them, sorry, let me reverse that. Unless that person that you're contacting feels like they know you, like you, or trust you, even if you catch them at the right time, aka they're in market, chances are they're not going to talk to you because they don't know you, like you, and trust you. So that's what the 5% is. So, you know, we've been touching on the fact that actually we need to be thinking about developing our personal brands and making the effort to create content that makes us stand out and look different. So 100% of one's territory can see you. The 70% is the latest figure in relation to how much of the purchase decision is completed by the time the buyer chooses to speak to a seller.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Wow.
Just another stat in ascending order: 90% of B2B buyers will decide to work with a vendor that was on their day one shortlist. So and that's HBR research. So if you're not on that first day one shortlist, then even if you do catch that 5%, you know, when they're in buying mode, it's an uphill battle.
Yep. And if you're not one of the top 3 or 5 or even 10 global brands, globally recognized brands, you're not going to make the shortlist. So it's down to you as the individual to develop your personal brand in front of your target audience to make sure you are included on the shortlist because of you and not your unknown brand.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool. And with that, I wish you all a wonderful rest of week. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Walking Digital Corridors. Take care all.
See ya.